How's it going, and welcome into the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today I'm going to be talking some must-own fantasy football running backs here with draft season winding down now. We're just under a week away from Thursday night kickoff, so we've still got some leagues to wrap up. I've got some drafts left to go, and for those of you who have that situation as well, I've got some names and some players for you. These are potentially some trade targets or candidates if you've already drafted these leagues and you just want to get your hands and upgrade that roster in some way, shape, or form. But these are some guys I'm very high on for various reasons. Some of them have some slight scoring format reasoning that makes them a must-own player in some formats over another. But we'll get in that in today's video. If you still need help, some rankings, any in-depth advice or analysis for your drafts, the 2021 Draft Guide Collection is linked in the description of today's video or any episode here on the channel, and you can go check that out on my website, sizzlefantasy.com. So, without further ado, drop down, give today's video a like, and subscribe if you're new around here. Let's hit that intro and get straight in to the running backs. All right, here we go. So I've done some of these videos already this offseason, more early on in the draft stage of the summer and whatnot. But today we're going for it all. 15 names up on the board. I've been breaking things down into chunks and whatnot and talking through different stages of the draft board. Today we're just, like I said, we're going for it all. I'm tossing all my names out there that I like right now. Players have been getting hurt, and these have been needed to be updated more frequently than I imagine. So I'm just going to toss all the names out there that I've got for you today here in late August, early September. So I'm not going to waste too long going through the first few names here. Christian McCaffrey, this one's a no-brainer. I could not include him on this list, but it's an obvious choice here. You're not passing up any of the top 3, maybe even 4 running backs on the board in fantasy leagues this season. There's no reason to be taking a different position. Christian McCaffrey is the best option with the first overall pick in fantasy leagues this year with that dynamic ability and what we've seen from him in the past. Same thing with Dalvin Cook. The volume, the workload, it's too good to make an exception for and to reach for somebody else. Even if it's getting the best wide receiver, if that's Devontae Adams to you, Tyreek Hill, do not pass on the running back. There's too much there's too much depth at the wide receiver position, and there's too much positional scarcity at the running back group to be overlooking this spot early. It seems like something so simple, but a lot of fantasy managers out there will make the mistake of passing on these top 3 backs, and obviously Alvin Kamara is the last of that top end tier, that group. Some people are lower on Kamara than I am, but I still expect him to be a fantastic top 3 back this season if he's able to stay healthy throughout. Obviously, I think you'll see an uptick in volume, carries, workload in that Saints offense with them becoming a little bit more running back dependent post Drew Brees. But I was excited to hear the news about Jameis Winston now being the starting quarterback because I'm confident in what he can do to lead this offense towards a productive statistical measurement per se this season. So getting a little bit out of the most obvious players, still sticking with guys in the first round here. We'll be progressing through the whole board, and I've got some names that are going in even some of the last rounds of drafts this year. Ezekiel Elliott for the Dallas Cowboys. Look, the volume, the upside, the floor. I've really become confident in each of those phases and what he possesses to a point where he is now my running back for this season. He has been much lower on this list, closer to a back-end first-round pick earlier on. But the more we hear out of Dallas, the more good news we hear trending in the right direction for Dak Prescott's shoulder. The usage, the health of that offensive line to start the season. I like this situation a lot. I think Zeke provides us a lot of stability, and he can almost be an anchor type player that holds down the fort and gives you week in and week out production that it's kind of sit and forget level expectations. You don't have to worry every week, am I going to be getting the numbers I need out of that running back 1 spot? When I know, he showed me last season, he can be used as a pass catcher. We all know Feed Zeke is an elite volume producer in terms of his pure and raw rushing outputs and whatnot. He scores touchdowns, gets the goal line work. Everything is in the situation that you're looking for in a running back 1 this year. Now we're starting to get into either some early second round, even maybe sometimes some mid-second round picks for those leagues that are 10 and 12 team sizes. So Najee Harris for the Pittsburgh Steelers is an absolute must-draft player for me this season. there is no reason to pass on the best running back in the 2021 class. He's got the best upside and the best floor value of any of the backs. It is a relatively weaker running back group than we saw in 2020, but Harris still has the potential to be used as a 3-down workhorse player. He has the opportunity to give us really, really great ceiling numbers down the stretch, and if he hits his stride, there is really no cap to exactly how good he could be as a player. I think that the one thing that is just kind of looming over his fantasy situation is that offensive line play, but we have other players that certainly have that issue, and we look past it for them, so I don't know why we shouldn't do so with Najee Harris. They have to become a more balanced football team this year. It's not an option for Pittsburgh. They can't throw at the rate they did last season and expect to have a successful year. So Harris will be used very early, very often, and I see very limited competition for reps going against him in this offense this year. It should be his time to shine there in Pittsburgh. Antonio Gibson, this one is a massive upside play here. He is going to be playing a Christian McCaffrey level role in this Panthers offense. That doesn't mean he is the caliber of player that CMC is or will hit the highs that Christian McCaffrey has hit previously in his career for fantasy. But man, he was on a tear last season, and he really only started a handful of games. He was being utilized in really around November, was becoming this breakout player as a rookie last season that looked like was going to carry fantasy managers to league championships, and then he gets turf toe and slows down to end the season out. This year, the workload, the volume is expected to increase. He's going to have opportunities and be used as a starting level player in this offense from day one instead of having to earn that role mid-season. And for a player that's so dynamic, can catch passes and be used as a rusher, I like that floor a lot, and that in turn creates a really advantageous ceiling situation here. So Antonio Gibson's one of my favorite picks to make right now, with J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers being kind of snatched out from underneath us last season, and those being two high upside picks that were going in this relative draft range earlier on before their injuries. Gibson is now taking over that role and starting to assert himself and climb the draft board, because he's now our next best option at that position and on that spot relatively in the draft board. James Robinson for the Jaguars. This is one who's obviously another big riser. Travis Etienne being out plays a big role here, makes a big difference. And at the end of the day, James Robinson might not have a picture-perfect situation, but the volume is back. He's going to be heavily utilized. This Jags offense is going to likely be on the field a lot, and even though they were a very bad football team last year, James was still able to have the usage we needed him to have. Like, they were still emphasizing and making sure the run game was a focal part of this team, even if they were trailing, and we only really saw him go away late in fourth quarters, but then he would turn to the passing game and be used as a check down option out of the backfield. So he's shown us in a previous season when the Jags were a bad football team, which is normally a red flag for fantasy football running back production, that he still has the tool set and the skills to be able to produce and get the job done, which is very, very encouraging. Finished as RB7, you see there on the screen. I think that last season is maybe as good as we can hope for right now, but again, surging up the draft board because now we have more confidence that he'll be used as a high-volume player, and for a team that needs to have a strong run game and at least find some balance so that Trevor Lawrence isn't dropping back 50 times a game and getting his head chopped off by defensive ends. Robinson will be a very integral piece of this offense, and again, he did show us last year he can get the job done in this situation, as unfavorable as it might be. David Montgomery for the Chicago Bears. It's very unusual to see a player with his potential workload being drafted at the stage he is on draft day. He's a late third, early fourth round pick in 12-team leagues. His ADP has risen slightly since we've lost some of those names, obviously J.K. Dobbins being the most recent of the bunch, but he is still a must-own player in that territory of the board. I think that his skill set is very favorable for all formats. He's not going to be a target magnet because they do have Tariq Cohen coming back off injury. He'll be involved. He'll be used as that third down back. But Montgomery has the capability to produce in any situation on the field, whether that is 1st and 10, 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2. He can be the guy in the field. He will be the guy in the field down near the goal line because he has that size and that ability to run through defenders and finish plays. And hopefully if Justin Fields, once he gets the chance to take over this offense, if he can take this group to the next level, that will increase the overall offensive output, extend drives longer, put up the potential to score more points in the end zone, and hopefully David Montgomery can soak up some of that ability to be used there and put forth some good numbers for us. Chris Carson for the Seattle Seahawks, the only ding I have against him here is the fact that he has been frequently in and out of lineups for a few weeks at a time over the course of his career. But when you talk about the workload he has, the skill set, the ability to produce in nearly all league formats, he can catch passes. He showed us that last year. He can score touchdowns, get used on the goal line. He's a do-it-all back. I wouldn't say he is a premier running back in today's game. I wouldn't say he is an elite, versatile weapon. But when you get the usage and the production that he then creates out of that usage that he has with the Seahawks so far, it's very, very encouraging to see. He was catching seam routes up the middle last year for touchdowns from Russell Wilson. And then he's just a battering ram on or inside the 5-yard line and will put up touchdown counts that are very nice. He'll have multi-touchdown games and just put very solid performances together, which when you're looking at a player who's likely your team's RB2, maybe even RB3 if you go incredibly heavy at the position early, it's a great advantage to have in something that you want to emphasize on your boards this year. Rashad Penny is coming back, but he's also very injury prone. I don't expect it to be a 50-50 split. I think Carson's still the man here in Seattle, and any concern I have with this draft pick lies more in Chris Carson's health than it does those around him, because he's shown us that when he's on the field, he's the go-to guy for this offense. Gus Edwards, obviously this is only because of that J.K. Dobbins injury. His ADP is still somewhat settling into what it will be at the end of draft season. Obviously all of these draft prices will change somewhat here and there, but Gus is the most fluid right now as the community is still trying to figure out exactly how they value him at this moment in time, but it's a lot higher than it was 2 days ago, I'll say that. Now he's a player we look at as a quality running back 2 starter. He's been scoring touchdowns at a fair clip since he's entered the league. He's going into, I want to say, year 3 now for Baltimore, maybe even year 4. And he's been a player who has consistently been a force in this offense. He hasn't always been the guy. He has had stints where he's had a few weeks here and there as the starter. But I've seen enough from him in the sample size we have to feel very comfortable that he could see 18 to 24 touches on a per game basis. And he's not a huge threat to catch passes out of the backfield, but he's just a steady player that falls forward and gains positive yardage. Again, his size makes him a little bit of an inexplosive player, but what it does do is give him great opportunity to be the most favored option in the end zone and find those red zone productive numbers that we all are looking for, and in those standard leagues that can become very, very valuable to us. So definitely a player who can be started and utilized as, again, a quality running back 2 in probably any league scoring format. He is a bit more advantageous in those standard leagues, though, again, because he does score a lot of touchdowns. I think he had 8 of them last season, if I recall correctly off the top of my head, as the reserve to either Mark Ingram or J.K. Dobbins at different points in the season. So Gus Bus Edwards, absolutely someone I'm trying to get my hands on here. And if you handcuffed him prior to that J.K. Dobbins injury, you're probably looking pretty darn good right now. Mike Davis, another pick that's not too flashy here. But man, this might be the worst running back room in the National Football League, and that actually bodes well for Mike Davis. He might be the worst starting running back in the league from a talent perspective because of that, but he's also got the least amount of competition for reps working against him. This is going to be his team. We saw this with Todd Gurley last season. As long as Todd was healthy, he was fantastic, scoring touchdowns, just being used as a goal line back. Mike's not going to give you anything insanely efficient or put up numbers that are eye-popping, but what he will do is be the top dog inside the 3-yard line, and he'll punch in touchdowns, score from them in the red zone. And when they need someone to do their dirty work, Mike Davis is going to be the guy they look to, because this offense has a lot of flash and dash with Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts, Russell Gage. They can air it out, but they need someone to, at the end of the day, get down and grind out drives. That'll be Mike Davis here. Not a super flashy pick again. He's a low-level RB2, probably a guy you would rather have as your RB3, but that can become a very, very valuable asset to have when we talk about having trade bait on the open market in the middle of the season. Potentially, you can go out there and snatch up a league-winning rookie player if Mike Davis can just be a steady and reliable starter, or if you get in a pinch, find yourself without one of your top 2 backs and need to elevate someone up into your lineup, Davis is a fantastic option to fill that role. Again, a bit more of a standard play because I am expecting a high touchdown productive season for him, and that to be the main basis upon which his value comes from, like a Todd Gurley last year. Chase Edmonds is a little bit of a different tale here. You've got yourself a PPR play. Chase Edmonds is the efficient player. He is the guy who's not going to be used as a workhorse player, not going to be involved in the goal line. The touchdown count will probably be a bit shaky, but what is he going to do? Get out in space, catch passes. I think we'd be happy seeing 12 to 16 touches per game, and he's just going to be an explosive player. This is a high-tempo offense. They want to get the ball out in space, moving. He's shifty, elusive, hard to tackle. It's a dream come true if you're a full PPR player and you can get him as your running back 3 off the board or as a potential flex option for you. He's going to have some really, really strong games this season. And again, in standard leagues, he might not be that valuable because he's really not going to score you that many touchdowns, especially when they get close to the end zone. Chase Edmonds' touchdown production is going to have to come from outside the 20-yard line, I think, because I think it becomes James Conner territory once you cross that marker. But until then, there's a lot of ways they can use him. He's a very dynamic player. Not the most pure running back in the world, a little bit undersized, but definitely a strong case to be made here for why he should be in fantasy lineups this season. Trey Sermon, one of the highest upside rookie running back picks in this year's fantasy football atmosphere. I think that Trey Sermon has the chance to put up some pretty ridiculous numbers if Raheem Mostert is out of the lineup. Now, we're not banking on the fact that Raheem Mostert will get hurt, but it has been a frequent part of his track record the last couple of years now. And I still think there's a role where you can have a productive season for Trey Sermon, even if Raheem Mostert stays clean. This is a committee-style system. The hot hand is going to get the ball. And I love that Trey Sermon is explosive, athletic, can make plays in the open field, but he can also be that hammer that just finishes the drive off and scores the touchdown for Shanahan. Look back at a Jeff Wilson Jr. There's been plenty of guys that have been fantasy relevant in this offense, and there's really no reason not to pick Trey because of the insane upside he has when the floor isn't all that bad either, because you figure he'll get worked in the offense one way or another. He's not going to be a super elite pass catcher or dynamic option, but in the terms of just what he can do based on the structure and how this running offense is schemed up, the sky's the limit for him. He could very well be a league-winning pick. I would say that behind Najee Harris, there isn't really any guaranteed work for any of these running backs, but I feel the most confident in the upside and floor combination of Trey Sermon and the return on an investment you can eventually get from him if you're patient and stick with him throughout the course of the season. So I'm all over Trey Sermon. I'd make an honest effort to draft him every chance I can on draft day, If he gets off to a slow start, you need to be watching the trade wire and keeping in touch with the owner of Sermon in your league, because he could potentially become a skyrocketing asset by week 5, 6, 7, 8, once he eventually does get that chance to see himself in a heavy workload. Michael Carter, a lot of people are getting scared off of Michael Carter right now, and he's actually dealing with a bit of an injury. But the main concern here, I think, lies in his usage and his workload for this Jets offense. A lot of people are getting concerned about the fact that it looks like a committee-style system. One guy's not going to get all the work here. But personally, that's not something I ever had expectations for this season. I always figured that Robert Saleh would somewhat adapt the committee role from San Francisco that he's bringing from Kyle Shanahan and integrate that into what is now his football team. But what I like so much about Michael Carter here is the value he has in PPR formats. I think like a Chase Edmonds, maybe he's not a super high upside touchdown scoring player, but I think he can get in space, be effective with the touches he's given, be efficient, and pick up nice chunks of yardage when given the chance to start. You've got Ty Johnson, who is going to be a bruiser. He can run guys over. Michael P. Ryan will get worked in there sometimes. Tevin Coleman will be used sometimes. But let's be honest, Tevin Coleman can't stay healthy and on a football field. There's just going to be a lot of different ways, and we'll have to maybe wait a couple weeks. He might get off to a slow start. But there is definitely upside I like here. There's definitely situations where I see Michael Carter being used in all areas of the field. He has the potential to be a three-down back. He is smaller. He is not the best type of player or body type to be used as a strong goal line presence, but it doesn't mean he can't eventually work himself into that offense, because at the end of the day, the competition working against him Yes, Ty Johnson and Michael Pirine have better suited skill sets for that area of the field, but I would still argue they are lesser overall talents than Michael Carter is, which might just make him be the player they keep on the field and out there more often. I don't think, this is a stretch of a comparison here, but Christian McCaffrey is no bulldozer on the goal line. He is just a great football player, so the Panthers opt to keep him out there. I'm not saying Michael Carter's Christian McCaffrey, but the point being here, even if you are a smaller back, there is the chance that you can carve out that role for yourself and just prove it down in and down out and get yourself on that football field and putting up some big numbers. Zack Moss, this is a bit of an upside play here, but this is a potential to be a big-time breakout this season. The Bills need to put together a run game. Josh Allen's great. The passing offense there is lethal right now, but just balance out that attack a little bit more. This is an argument I've made with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. You can throw the ball downfield and win by airing it out with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, but look how keyed in teams are to your passing game now. If you watched CEH in the Super Bowl, they weren't respecting the run at all because they just don't try to do it. It's the same situation with the Bills here. Zack Moss has the build to be used as both a rusher and a receiver, and he's the larger of the backs in Buffalo, which inclines me to think he should be the favored option on the goal line. I would never, ever, ever say that Devin Singletary at his whopping height of 5'7" and what is he? He can't be more than 170, 180 pounds, would out-touch Zack Moss in that area of the field for goal line production. Now, I just said that Michael Carter is a smaller back and he could carve out that workload for himself, but this is an even more extreme example of a player who is just tiny. Moss is the clear-cut favorite for me, outside of Josh Allen, who honestly is his biggest competition for those goal line rushing attempts, to take that value away from him. If the Bills decide to be more cautious, approach with a little bit more hesitation and care towards their quarterback's health in the end zone, because there's a lot of big boys. Once you get inside the 5-yard line, they're bringing out the heavy set goal line packages and just trying to build a wall so you can't jump over them into the end zone. Use Zack Moss. I hate to say this because I love running backs, but use the expendable player out there. Send Zack Moss out there to run over a linebacker, barrel his way into the end zone, score touchdowns. And again, he can be dynamic. I watched him catch passes. He's not too bad out in space. So there's a very nice potential role for usage here in Buffalo this season. The Bills just have to make that a commitment that they're going to do, and we have yet to actually see them go about that. But the main point here and the emphasis is you're getting a running back in the later rounds of your fantasy drafts that has that upside, has the capability to potentially put up weekly running back 2 numbers for us and be a great pick on draft day that will eventually pay dividends for us back when it counts at the end of the season. And then Rhamondre Stevenson here, 2 names left on the board. This one is, again, more of a standard play, but with Sony Michel out of town in New England, there is a lot more work to be had here and a lot more opportunities for other players to move up the depth chart and carve out roles for themselves. Sony Michel was kind of the forgotten man, the odd man out, but every once in a while he would have a high-touch game. What it simply does for Rhamondre Stevenson, now that that spot is opened up, is Damian Harris seems like the clear-cut number 1 option day 1. But Rhamondre is a bulldozer. He's a battering ram in standard leagues. I cannot get enough of him late in drafts because I see LeGarrette Blount when I look at Rhamondre Stevenson. He's even had some explosive plays where he's gotten out in space and outrun defenders in the preseason and made some big runs happen. But I can see Bill just subbing him into the game and just having him run into the end zone over and over and over again. Playing that, again, I literally see a mirror image of LeGarrette Blount. If you have heard of Mike Gillislee, when he was a New England Patriot, he played that role for a few weeks there where he would literally just come in, score a few touchdowns, and then check out of the game and call her good. Rhamondre has that level of role. Not a great PPR play. He can catch passes. He's just not an elite pass catcher. That's James White's role for this team. But again, in these committee-style systems, if you can find the niche players and then figure out which one of those guys works best for you in your league scoring format, that can be something very, very helpful here. And going back to the 49ers, that was Jeff Wilson last year in those standard leagues. That was, they didn't really have as much of an extreme situation in New England last year, but they have had these guys in the past, which is why I'm projecting this usage for him coming this season. So Rhamondre, you can usually get him in the last round of 16 round drafts, His ADP has him still falling a little bit after that, but I think that he's more valuable than a waiver wire pickup at this point. This is someone we should be taking in the final rounds of draft day. And then Chuba Hubbard. The reasoning for this one is I think he will have some involvement on this team as just a playmaker. But really the value here is that coming off a season where Christian McCaffrey only played 3 games, I am not projecting McCaffrey to get injured. I am not expecting him to have more risk this season. But we saw Mike Davis come in and have a very valuable role with the Panthers as a much less explosive talent and a player who I think fit that scheme to a lot lesser of an extent. Chuba Hubbard's draft price is nothing crazy at all. You can get him for very affordable in the rounds 10 plus of drafts and just have an insurance policy if you've picked Christian McCaffrey already, or give yourself a low-risk investment who will start as pretty much just an end-of-the-bench rider. And if something were to happen to McCaffrey, Hubbard's value shoots through the roof because he is very explosive, very quick twitch, can get out in the space and make big plays happen. And if he gets to a point where that is his usage and role in this offense, he will never overtake Christian McCaffrey. If he's healthy, he will never make an honest run at his workload. But it becomes a Tony Pollard-esque player, and I'm not one to overvalue a team's running back, but we've all talked about Tony Pollard being this elite handcuff option for Ezekiel Elliott the past few seasons now. Chuba Hubbard is that next type player who is very, very talented, but is just sitting behind one of the best running back usages in offensive situations in the league. So if this happens, Chuba will be a home run pick. If not, he's a safety blanket. We'll see. Will his value hit and will he become something? But if not, it doesn't really count against your team as something too significant, and you can just attack that position on your roster via the waiver wire trading or some other avenue of filling out that spot. But very low risk, very high reward is the scenario here for Chuba Hubbard. All right, I just went through a lot, covered a lot of names really quickly. I wanted to try and keep this relatively bite-sized and an efficient style video for you all. So by any means, if you have questions, let me know down in the comment section below. If there's anything I can do to help you with your leagues this season, I want to be the most interactive fantasy channel out there and be able to help you in whatever that means that my role looks like for you this season. So drop down questions, comments, concerns. If you've got a video suggestion for me, I'd love to hear that as well. Check out the SFS community Discord, which is linked in the description of today's video for more personalized content and just ways to get a hold of me and use me as a resource to hopefully win your leagues this season. We've got a lot of videos coming here. We're ramping things up. The season is just about to get underway, and I could not be more excited. So thank you all so much for watching. Drop down, give this video a like, and subscribe if you haven't done so already before you head on out. And I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.